Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 118. I am here today with Preacher Reads. Do you have another name aside from Preacher
I do,
Reads?
I do. What's going on, guys? My name is Dustin in real life. So we could call me Preacher. You can call me Dustin.
I
Either of
didn't want
those
to
is
out
good.
you, you know. You
No,
know.
no, we're good. We're good.
All right, Dustin from Preacher Reads. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. 118 is impressive.
I know, yeah. It took a minute for me to get here, but once I joined up BookTube again, I was like, oh, now I have plenty of guests, and sometimes I get
Yeah,
people on again.
awesome. Yeah, it's been a good day, man. We went to Dave and Buster's today. Yeah,
Yeah,
I played
I've
some
been there.
Guitar Hero. Played some Guitar Hero.
Oh, that's always
I'm not
fun.
gonna lie. I did some Googling after to try to figure out if I could get Guitar Hero on my PC. Maybe figuring out how that can happen because I kind of need it back in my life. It was a nice dash of nostalgia. I was pretty good at it back in the day, so I need it back.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I haven't played Guitar Hero in a very, very long time. And there's an old photo of me from when I was like, oh my god, like 8 or 9, and
hmm
I'm like playing it, and I was just kind of screwing around on the little fake guitar they give you. Yeah, I'm not gonna pull it out at the moment because like I'd have to crawl around in my dad's office to look for it. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah. In Rock Band when they did with Rock Band with the drum set, because I can't play drums to save my life. I play a little bit of guitar in real life, but
yeah, I saw the
drums,
guitars
ooh,
behind you. I was gonna ask you about
rough.
that.
Yeah, yeah, I play a lot. I play music. Been playing music since I was a wee lad. But yeah, we hit some Dave and Buster's up. It was actually with my men's group at our church, so we went and got some hot dogs and acted like kids. It was great.
Sounds like a fun day, actually.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I'm ready to be here. Gonna end the day on a high note.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, you started a BookTube channel recently, and it's kind of funny. People keep calling you Preacher, and I keep thinking of the comic book series by Garth Ennis. I
I
don't know
need
if
to
you've
read
ever
that.
what
I've never read it.
I
I
was
need
about
to
to
read
say. I
it.
don't know if you've ever read that or know what the heck I'm talking about, but
I know of it. I know it, but I've never read it. There was a show too, right?
there was, yes,
Yeah. Was the show good? I don't want to assume it was good.
it was solid, wasn't bad.
Okay. Yeah, man. Started channel. Been something that
Reading
I had
books,
been
and
I've been considering, and then Town Square, man. Town
would you
Square
say
got
would you
me.
say you give a Christian perspective on your channel, or do you just is it your perspective, or both? I
Oh,
don't.
that's a good question. I'm a very strong believer in, I don't want to get too preachy, but I'm a very strong believer in what I call
Don't get
what
too preachy. Wink,
many
wink.
people call Christian freedom, which is that like something like reading books is going to be a lot of it's going to be on an individual basis. Like
Mm,
if you feel like in your faith it's something you shouldn't be reading, don't read it. If you feel like it doesn't bring you to a place where you are, um, you know, going against what you believe in your convictions, then like it's all good. So I haven't spent a lot of time on my channel kind of saying like, hey, should Christians read this? Or like, is this good? More just talking about what I'm reading. And obviously it's going to bleed through
mm-hmm.
just in how I enjoy things and what I find palatable and what I don't. But definitely more just me talking about books. Um, and that's going to bleed through because it's my worldview. But I've considered a little bit of that type of content. I did have one short that was about like how bad Christian media is that kind
Uh,
of popped off a little bit. That was kind of spicy because I'm a big proponent of like most Christian media is really bad. So,
not a
and they
fan of
like,
God's Not Dead and movies
oh,
like that.
dude, God's by the fourth one, just take it out back and shoot it in the back of the head, dude. Um, I just think that like we should have, I said it in the short, we should have more Christians just making really good media, and then they should let their worldview like seep through,
Mm.
and that should be it. If you really believe things, it's going to come through, but you don't need to decide to do a Christian version of it, just make it worse. Um, I remember my mom. I got really into horror when I was in middle school, and my mom gave me a bunch of Ted Dekker books. And I remember reading the first one, and I've heard he's got a couple good ones now, but this was like back in the day. I'm old, and he had a hard time like having a believable antagonist. It's like a horror book, and the antagonist can't cuss and he can't do anything bad and they can't show anything bad because
Mm.
it's a Christian book, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, so what antagonist is this? Like, how is he evil when we can't even
He
see
gives
it,
bad
hear it?
vibes off. Is that it?
Yeah, right. Like it's just like he's just vaguely bad, right? And then like every book can't end with the protagonist dying and then coming back to life. Like we get it. He's Jesus, right? And so I mean, I think that's just something
Did you
that
ever watch Bible Man? Do you know what Bible Man
I
is?
wasn't a Bible man guy. I wasn't a Bible. I grew up in a household that was like partly Christian,
Uh-huh.
like definitely not a like extremely religious household. My mom was pretty devout, but we definitely weren't watching Bible Man. Like we were watching ESPN. Like I grew up in a sports household, just so wasn't kind of like didn't watch Veggie Tales, none of that stuff.
Oh,
So
but
I'm not
VeggieTales is good.
I'm
I
not
like
super
VeggieTales.
inundated with like the no offense to anybody, like kind of more the homeschool Christian culture.
Oh.
I'm not as inundated with that. I am now that I'm like a pastor because we have
VeggieTales is
tons of
actually
awesome.
good though.
VeggieTales I've heard it's high quality. The cheeseburger song is great. But so yeah, like long story short, definitely bring a Christian perspective, but it's not like the thrust of my channel. Like my buddy, the Reformed reader, I know you know him.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah.
Like that's the
Actually
thrust
having
of
him
his.
on next time.
Oh heck
Next
yeah,
episode
that's the
will be
thrust
him.
of his channel for the most part. Like that's his goal, right? Is like, hey, should Christians read this? Like he just posted a new thumbnail that was like, should Christians read Red Rising? And I think that's awesome. I kind of take more of the approach of like, hey, here's what I'm reading, and I'm going to talk about it.
That's fair.
And just like kind of give my thoughts on it. I like to shoot from the hip, except for I did do a video the other day that was like fully typed out, kind of like a video essay style.
I watched a little bit of that. It's about the Dark Tower, right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a King nerd, so I enjoyed nerding out on that. Liked that medium. Like I thought it was cool. It felt like I was almost writing a sermon, and then I got to almost kind of like perform it instead of just talk. So probably end up doing more of those, even though it didn't get too much love. But yeah, man, that's the goal of my channel. Is pretty simple. I like reading books. I'm going to talk about them, and hopefully people like talking to me about me talking about them.
Well, that's good. It's I thought it was interesting that you called your channel Preacher Reads.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. Wonder what this is about. And I'm like, I'm gonna give this guy a shout out because I think more people should check it out. So
thank you, man. Yeah, I've gotten some interesting questions. Like I posted something on Instagram of like the dragon bone chair, and I had someone comment on it, and they were like, your Instagram says that you're a preacher and dragons are evil in the Bible. So like therefore you shouldn't read.
Are
this
they?
book.
Like are there dragons in the Bible?
So like in the book of Revelation, which is it's apocalyptic literature.
Oh yeah,
so
that's right.
Most of it is extremely symbolic, right? Like it's a symbolic vision. So in the book of Revelation, like Satan is depicted in that fashion. And unfortunately I tend to like the trolls to get to me a little bit sometimes, and so I responded and started like getting into like theology mode, talking about how that doesn't make any sense. And the person just basically responded back with like, no, you're wrong and you're awful. And I wasted all my time, and so, but I've gotten a little bit of that. But, again, like my goal is mostly not to tell people like, hey, you should read this or you shouldn't read this. But I do try to pick and choose my reads to fit, like I said, within my own convictions. And there's some books I haven't talked about as much just because I'm like, yeah, my 17-year-old youth group kid watch my channel, would I want him to grab this book and like devour it? Probably, maybe not. And so that's actually been a little bit of a back and forth for me, kind of as I've started the channel, is like, okay, how do we answer those questions?
Yeah, that's fair. I have a sports podcast I do from September, and we just wrapped up the most recent season, where we talk about college football. My family mostly watches that podcast because, well, they're not really as big readers as I am. Though my dad was reading Mere Christianity
I've
recently.
kept the channel. Sorry, no, you're good. I've kept the channel like not like separate from everything else, but like I don't post it on my personal page. My Instagram page is a separate one for my personal Instagram, just so I don't have to kind of engage in any of those conversations unless I absolutely have to. So, you said you read Mere Christianity.
My dad did, yes.
Your dad did. Gotcha.
I have not, but he's like, Britton, you should read this. And I'm like, all right, I've owned it for a while, so I guess I better get to it before too long. So I'm hoping at least either this month or, well, most likely next month, because this month's pretty stacked. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would highly recommend diving in at least a little bit into like Lewis's, like the timeline kind of his story, because Mere Christianity is really interesting, because it's early in his faith, in the sense of like he got saved at a later age, I think in his 40s. And so he wrote that once he had, really been grinding and learning how to write. So it's beautifully written. But he's also decently like fresh as a Christian and like still learning his theology. And what's cool about that is it almost reads like a stream of consciousness a little bit. Like you see him working through what he believes as he's writing it. It doesn't feel like he's writing a theology textbook, like, hey, you should believe this. It almost feels like he's like got a diary out and he's just like, this is what I'm thinking. Like, this is why I believe what I believe right now, and like kind of where I'm going. And some of his later stuff, he gets a little bit more like, okay, I'm there, I'm figuring it out. But some of Mere Christianity reads almost like you're talking to somebody who's super smart, can write like crazy, but is still trying to kind of like work through it with you. And I think it's why a lot of people really like that book. It's very accessible, but also super deep, because he's just brilliant, right? But I think it's I probably put it in my top 5 must reads for somebody interested in the Christian faith, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've only read some of his fantasy stuff and A Grief Observed, which is probably my favorite book of his.
Talk about a tearjerker, man.
Oh yeah.
Shoot. You talk about stream of consciousness. That literally is. I mean, he was writing that as he was dealing with the death of his wife, if I remember correctly. And you can just like feel the stages of grief in that. And oh man, it's something, that's for sure. The Great Divorce is another one that is really cool. It's kind of a allegory about heaven, and kind of engages with the concept of like loving our family versus like devoting ourselves to Jesus, and it's a really cool allegory. But he sets it almost up like a short little fantasy novel.
That's like his
much less.
It's kind of like his take on like William Blake, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's his Christian version. Yeah, like it's I tell you, it's his weirdest one for sure. It's probably the one that's up the most for like most up for interpretation in terms of like people like, okay, I think it's about this. No, I think it's about this. The other ones are pretty straightforward. Like True Letters, super straightforward. Also fantastic though. But he's brilliant, man. I've yet to read his sci-fi stuff. I have it on my shelf.
I own it. I just haven't read it yet. Same thing with some of his other nonfiction work. I have his The Four Loves. I haven't read that one yet.
It's good stuff.
But I like Lewis. I think I have kind of moved on from his kind of model. It hasn't. I'll put it like this: hasn't really lasted with me as much as his friend J.R.R. Tolkien has in terms of fictional work. I tend to like his nonfiction a lot more, is what I'll say.
I agree. I mean, Lewis was much his allegory is much more straightforward, right? Like he's like, hey, like
Yeah, even
Aslan
Tolkien
is
was like,
Jesus,
dude, calm
right?
down. Like,
Yeah, like Aslan is Jesus, my guy. Like we get it, but it works. I think in that setting, I've heard the sci-fi is much more subtle.
yeah, I like the concept. I've heard the concept is they basically go to
Mhm.
like a planet and they have like no concept of sin, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, how would that society work?
Yeah, I've heard I've heard that one's much more subtle.
We'll see.
And Tolkien was just Tolkien was he was trying to accomplish something different, right? Like
Well, sure.
they're
Yeah.
they're trying to accomplish something different. Um, I think if I had to guess, I would love to know if Lewis knew that Narnia was gonna like become a longer, bigger series. Like I wonder if it just kind of continued to grow on him, and he thought like, oh, I'm gonna write this allegory story, right? Like, and then it was like, oh, this is by the time he's done, it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Probably in our standards, huge, but
Mm-hmm.
his standards huge.
I
And then
don't
the
think they're that
allegory just kind
long,
of
if I
had to
remember.
keep going.
They're
Yeah, it's not
pretty
long
they're
overall,
pretty
but
reasonably like, I mean, compared to
yeah,
something like your average fantasy novel nowadays, I'll
uh,
just say like
we're
it's
just
pretty.
we're just weird. I had this conversation the other day because someone made a comment about my thumbnail for the Dark Tower video, and in the thumbnail I put some quotes of like things people have said about the Dark Tower, and one of them was that it was too long, which I've heard because I come from like horror. Like
Interesting.
I didn't read epic fantasy much at all until probably 5-6 years ago. Like I read all horror. I was a King nerd, and if most horrors are standalones, and so like most horror people are like, I haven't read The Dark Tower. I love King, but I can't read that many books, or like that's too long. And this guy was like, man, The Dark Tower's not long. And I was like, well, it's 1.3 million words, and there's 8 books. Like for normal people, that's long. We're just not normal anymore, right? Like
I
we
guess
hear
not.
1.3 million words and we're like,
I
you know?
generally stick with like trilogies if
Yeah.
I can help it, unless it's like a series that'll keep my interest, like A Song of Ice and Fire or The Dark Tower or something
Mhm.
like that. I'm actually about to start Malazan later on in the year, so hopefully that'll go
I'm
well.
holding off on that experience until I am like not also reading Sun Eater and like not also reading this, and I really want
That's
to
a good
give it like
idea.
I want to give it its due. I probably won't follow through with that, but right now that's what I'm thinking. That like I'm gonna try to set aside Malazan time once I decide to dive into it, because I mean it's got to be a bear. I'm already like clearing time for the Book of the New Sun read through
That'll be
with a
interesting.
bunch of people,
Gene Wolfe
and
was a
I'm
Catholic. I've bounced off most of the
yeah
books I've read from him.
never
Um,
tried any, but we're all
so
reading it together. And my goal is gonna like I'm reading 5 books right now at the same time. When we read that, I'm probably gonna just read it. Like that's my goal right now. It's like I'm gonna dig in, and I'm gonna put everything else away. Um, with what I'm reading right now, 5 has not been too much. Like I feel like I'm handling it well.
reading
But with
5 books
something
at once.
I am, and now that's 5-ish. So it's I'm reading 2 arcs that I'm trying to get done before the release day. I'm reading
Oh,
my
man.
Nine Realms book club, which is sort of Kaigen. I'm reading A Little Hatred,
Mm.
uh, and I am reading the second book in Cirque du Freak, which is like a middle grade horror. It's my nostalgia read. That was like my first horror series that I ever read.
Okay.
I'm just going back through it and reading it, and it's bad, and it's so bad
Did you ever
in
read?
places.
Did you ever read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Oh
Or
yeah, oh yeah,
I was about to say
yeah,
that spooked me when I was a kid.
yeah. Cirque du Freak was like the first, besides Harry Potter, and I think it might have even predated Harry Potter for me. It was the first series that I remember. Like I read book 1, I got to go get book 2. I gotta go get book 3. I gotta go get book 4. Like it's the first time I remember that feeling of like I didn't just read something because it was there. I was like actively pursuing finishing the series. So I'm gonna go back through it. I mean, they're short and they're quick. The prose is just, I mean, it's middle grade horror, and so I mean, it's not the greatest, but it also reads pretty quickly. So I mean, that's 5, but it's including that. Um, and we're reading sort of Kaigen really slowly because we have weekly with that book club. We have weekly meetups, so like it's 6 chapters a week, and so that one's not bad. So I basically just pop in the audiobook in time to get it done each week, and then move on to the other stuff for a couple days, and then kind of head back to it. But when Book of the New Sun comes up, definitely gonna have to clear the schedule and just I'm reading that from what I've heard. I'm just guessing because I've heard it's pretty dense.
Yeah, I'm starting a couple fantasy series this year. I am reading, well, Malzahn. Discworld, which I'm going to be starting after I finish Yiddish Policeman's Union, which I'm hoping to have finished tomorrow. And I'm also trying to read some pre-Tolkien fantasy because I'm quite curious, which I guess Gorman Guest is kind of in that vein.
What's that one that what's the one that Philip Chase gave Brian Bell that he was supposed to
the
hate?
Worm Ouroboros? Yeah, I'm not reading that one.
Yes.
I'm not reading that
you
one.
should read it, dude. Come on.
Like you were saying about Book of the New Sun, I have to wipe the slate clean before I touch that book. So yeah, someday I'll get to it, but not right now.
Sounds atrocious.
It is not for the faint of heart. But Brian Bell read it and reasonably enjoyed it. That madman.
Yeah. It sounds so bad. Yeah, I mean that's I love a good challenge, but only occasionally. So like I'm trying to be smart about because I don't want to bounce off of any of these series that I really want to do Malazan, but I don't want to bounce off of it. So I'm trying to like make sure I'm in the right spot. I'm in the right headspace. That's been an interesting part of like having a channel now is especially since I've been trying to push self-pub as much as possible. So I'm starting to receive arcs and like receive copies of self-pub books to read. And I want to read what I'm saying I'm reading for the channel, and I want to have plans, but like I don't want to bounce off of a book I would have liked in April because I rushed it in February. It just wasn't the right time. So just trying to find a middle ground of that right now. Like I'm bouncing off of an arc right now a little bit. That I think if I was in a different headspace, I would like more.
What arc is it?
It's called the City That Would Eat the World by John Bierce. And I'm liking it overall. It's progression fantasy. He's pretty well known for another series that's finished. And the thing that I'm struggling with a little bit is like pacing. And I think it's a progression fantasy thing. He gets going. Like the main event happens in the beginning of the book where it's like, here's the problem. And now we're going to go solve the problem. And I'm like, okay, we're going. And then he's like, never mind. Here's 2 chapters of like lore dump progression fantasy, like statistic stuff. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want to go. Like we were going to go. And then he goes and you're like, yes, we're going. And then 2 chapters later, he's like, okay, let's stop. Let me explain to you.
Has John and the Minton family, if you will, have they given you Discovery yet? Or have
yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I have it. And I'm trying to hold off until closer to release date. I'm still going to read it prior, but like I'm not going to be able to hold off. I'll probably read it in March.
I'm trying to wait until I get some of these other books done before I get to it. So maybe in March or April I can get to it, but we'll see.
Technically my February is locked up, and like I'm supposed to finish what I'm reading now. I'm supposed to start Howling Dark, and hopefully finish that before the end of February. I'm supposed to read The Immortal Investigation.
Isn't that the one by Kronk?
Yes. I just started The Black Mantle tonight, which is book 2 of Andrew Watson's series.
Oh, geez, you put them out at the same time, like Philip Chase style?
No. So book 1 was when did book 1 come out? I don't remember when book 1 came out, but I just finished it though. That was one that was just a regular release. I finished it in time to read the arc. Book 2 comes out the 14th of this month. I tell you, like that was I knew it was going to be good. It was much better than good, and I was pretty stoked on that. So I want to finish that in time for the release, which is the 14th. And then I was supposed to get through what is the novella after Howling Dark? Queen Amidst Ashes. Yeah. The goal was to get through all that by the end of February, but like every time I turn my Kindle on, I see Discovery, and I'm like, I could start it. I could do what's 6 books, you know? I could start it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't generally like reading on my phone. It just discombobulates me a bit. So maybe I'll try reading it on my computer, but we'll see how that goes when I get to it. So
yeah, I don't love reading on my Kindle.
I like physical media.
I've had to learn to love Kindle since I started the channel, because every arc I've gotten has been an e-arc for the most part.
So that said, John Mittens, if you watch this, I appreciate the book that you gave it to me early. So don't take that.
I'm gonna read the mess out of it, whether it's on Kindle or a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. And then when I get my hands on the physical book, I'll probably read it again if I like it. It's funny, man. Like it sounds like, because a lot of these connections we've made are like mostly in the fantasy space, right? Like this is fantasy. I love it that their book, which I knew nothing about when I subbed to the channel and when I subbed to the Patreon,
I
knew
had
nothing
heard
about
bits
the book,
and
didn't know it
pieces,
existed.
but
I think it's so funny that the book sounds like something I like. It sounds like my OG, like when I read horror. It doesn't sound like what I would have expected from, all the fantasy we talk about in this kind of like in this world. It sounds more like what I was reading when I was like knee deep in King and John Langan and those guys. And so I'm pretty stoked about it, because like that's my first love. It's like cosmic horror. And so I'm pretty excited to dive into it.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you like cosmic horror. I think I've heard you mention that a couple times, because you are a Christian, preacher reads and all. And cosmic horror, I mean, I don't want to go into like the Lovecraftian one, because I think cosmic horror existed before he showed up, but like the whole idea is that like the universe is indifferent to human beings doing their thing.
Yeah, I
like, have you reconciled that? I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that.
For sure. So I'll say like baseline concept here for me when I read fiction is, if it's set in a fictional world that is sufficiently different than ours, or the reality that I believe is true about the world, right? So like, we use dragons for example again, right? Like, I don't believe that dragons exist, nor do I believe that like a biblical worldview needs to believe dragons exist. So if dragons exist in this fantasy world over here, that has no bearing on like my actual biblical worldview. This is fiction. Another good example would be like Harry Potter, right? Like wizards exist in Harry Potter. The wizarding in Harry Potter is not the same thing as the witchcraft that is talked about in scripture, or even close, right? From a worldview standpoint, one of them is fiction. I believe that one of them is the actual way of the world.
Yeah.
And so they're so different for me. They're so separated for me that I don't find them grading up against each other. Because while they use like similar language, it doesn't mean that they're not the same thing. Like my favorite TV show of all time is Supernatural. And I have people all the time who are like, how do you like Supernatural? It's kind of like,
I'm not trying to like what's the word? Insinuate that like you shouldn't like cosmic horror.
Right. Yeah, I think it's
I'm curious, like what you think about it when you read it. I get what you're saying.
For sure.
I get what you're saying.
It's like with Supernatural, right? Like, okay, technically there's biblical language and some like biblical characters and stuff, but it's definitely not a Christian worldview, right? So they just don't even match with me. I enjoy Lucifer, the TV show, right? And so kind of with that as the baseline, what I love about cosmic horror is that it forces the reader to consider that there may be more to the universe than like what they can see, right? That it takes one moment for their entire worldview to come crashing down, and for them to realize that like there's something bigger, or there is something grander, or there's something scarier, right? Like there's something more vast than just our day-to-day physical world that we live in. So like for me, that's why I think I like cosmic horror, because it almost opens that door of like think of Revival by Stephen King. Like it opens a door that you can't close. And I think that the actual real world operates in a similar way, in the sense that many people's worldview is much smaller than reality. And so I would say it almost has like a positive theme for me a lot of times when I read cosmic horror.
Well, sure.
Considering that.
I mean, sure. I mean, you know, there's the old saying, reality is stranger than fiction. I mean, if we wrote about a lot of the stuff that happens, you know, people wouldn't believe it.
True. But I think, you know, for me, I read a lot as a middle schooler. Didn't read much as a high schooler. Like I was in the smarty pants classes. And so like reading became a chore because I had to read all the boring stuff. And I was not into lit fic like at all. Like I remember 12 AP.
Oh
like,
man, I read those before they assigned it. I was like, oh
Tess
yeah.
of the D'Urbervilles, The Awakening, Great Expectations, like all those. Boy, I'll never forget.
Dickens is great though. I haven't read Great Expectations.
Was talk about falling asleep in class. But again, it was 11th, 12th grade, so maybe different now.
That's fair.
I'll never forget when Fahrenheit 451 was given to the class, and I was like, not another one of these. And I read it and I was like, why can't they all be like this? Like this was good. It was a real story where stuff happened.
Yeah, no,
it was still literary, but stuff happened in this story. You know?
Yeah, I actually did a conversation about Fahrenheit with a good friend of mine. That's his favorite book of all time. And I put it up, and I was really proud of that conversation, and like barely anyone watched it. I was crushed, you know?
Yeah, I enjoy that one. I mean, that's nowhere near Something Wicked This Way Comes for me.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Which is a book I DNF'd actually first time I read it.
Really?
And I was not in the literary headspace. I had a lot going on, and I was trying to read it like while life was happening. And then I ended up reading it like on vacation where no one was talking to me and I had nothing to do. And I blew through it and loved it. And it's in my top 10, but I needed that space of like, I'm not trying to like read 10 pages in between heading to work and doing this. I needed to just read it. And then I absolutely loved it. But I'll never forget Fahrenheit 451. And then our 12th grade class, we got to pick an extra book out of like, the teacher gave us a list of 30 books and we got to pick one and everyone did a presentation on it. And I don't even remember why I picked it, but like I just grabbed Ender's Game, didn't know anything about it. And absolutely loved it, of course, because it's a masterpiece. And I was like, we could have been reading this kind of stuff, right, in high school instead of reading Tess of the D'Urbervilles. But you know, not to rag on litfic too much, but from there, like I didn't read much. College, my undergrad's in philosophy and religion, so like mostly reading stuff on that. And then I told this story in one of my videos. Sophomore year, I was at the beach with my now wife, girlfriend at the time, and all they do at the beach is sit on the beach. That's their vacation, right?
You have a very chill family, if that's the case. You're not like...
Well, not anymore. Now that I have children, we don't just sit on the beach. But like while I was in college, I come from a family that like when we go on vacation,
your kids just like sit there and like play. That's weird.
Yeah,
they're not like
when we go on vacation. My family like
they're not like running around like woo water. Yeah,
my mom knows what we're doing at 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 1 and 2. I go on vacation with my girlfriend and her parents are like, I don't even know when we're eating lunch. We're just going to the beach. We're sitting here. So like second day, I'm like, man, I'm bored out of my mind. So I go to Target. I'm like, there's a Target right up the road. I'm like, hey, I'm going to walk up to Target and see if they have any, like, maybe I'll get a book. And hadn't been reading fiction like at all. And I went up to Target, walked down the aisle, and one of the first books I saw was 11/22/63. Just come out.
That's so
had never read a Stephen King book in my life.
Really?
Had never touched one. I knew of it because of the movie. And creepy stuff, and like but I never read it. I knew of like Pet Cemetery, and so I was like, I'll just read this. It's huge. It'll probably give me, you know, plenty of stuff to do for the next few days while I'm at the beach instead of being bored. And absolutely fell in love with it. Again, another book that's in my top 10, and that kicked off kind of the Stephen King thing, where I
Mm.
basically only read Stephen King for, you know, probably the next year, just kind of going one book at a
You know,
time.
that's funny you say
Um,
that. I had a similar thing with King where I was kind of like, I had always known of King. Like, I initially watched some of the film adaptations of some of his work, you know, like The Shining
mhm,
and
right.
Shawshank and The
Oh,
Green Mile, which some of my favorite movies of all time. Um, uh, you know, then I was like in high school, and like for some reason, actually it was I watched Stranger Things for the first time, and
mm,
there were people who were like, or maybe I read like 11/22/63 or something before that. I don't remember, but I went on like a huge like spree of reading a bunch
yeah.
of Stephen King. Like I just went like full balls into the multiverse.
Well,
You know?
because you feel like you have to like, you know what
I
I'm
read
saying? It's one of those
like
situations where you read one, you're like, I like that, and they're like, wait, but you haven't read The Shining, and then you read that, and they're like, but you haven't read Pet Cemetery, and then you just have to like, you just all the way down through the Dark Tower. You know,
yeah, I read like the Dark Tower, and I was
mhm.
like, okay, I'm done for a while. I just need to chill. That
Yeah.
was
What
insane.
was what was interesting about the timing for me was, while that was happening, he was putting out, you know, 2 books a year, which he's still kind of doing. And this was right before the Bill Hodges trilogy, which I don't love. They're fine. But there was like a decent string of solid ones, right? You had like 11/22/63, you had Under the
It's one of my
Dome, you
favorite
had
ones.
you had
Eleven twenty
Joyland.
two sixty three.
No, it is probably my favorite. Mostly, I said this in my top 10 video. I picked that one because of that story. But it could be the Green Mile, it could be 11/22/63, it could be, you know, the Dark Tower as a whole, and a couple others. But
I know,
I
right?
think what
Like it's one
also
of the.
helped was
It's kind of like
like I was getting 2 releases every year as well. So I was diving into the back catalog. I was reading all the stuff that I had to read to be a real Stephen King fan. But then it was like, also here's The Outsider. Also here's, you know, Under the Dome. Here's Joyland. Here's all these pretty solid, like I would say top half King books that were coming out. I was getting day one. So like I was pretty locked in. I think right now I have all but 1 or 2 of his published works.
oh hell,
Um,
I don't. I
one
mostly
one short
borrowed
story
all the books I read.
collection.
I don't have all
Yeah,
of
like I
them.
said, I got weird, man. I got like I only read Stephen King for like a couple years. You know, because
So nobody like threw any other books. Like, oh, if you like King, you should read this. Like, how did you not get burned out,
eventually,
sir?
eventually. So like that's when I started going on Twitter and I started following like horror bloggers and stuff.
You didn't like see all the books that like
Wasn't
Stephen
into the
King. He
YouTube space
blurbs
at
like
all when it
nuts.
came to books. The problem with King is when he blurbs books, half the time they suck. Um, yeah, that's
Oh, come
another
on
story.
now. I've read a couple
He
books
doesn't
he's
have the
blurbed that I
greatest
liked.
taste sometimes.
Fine.
But
When do any of us
so
have the best taste? Like, come on.
I want to say the first book I remember reading that wasn't King when I was like into horror was Horns by Joe Hill, which is his kid. So,
Who's his son?
and then it's like from Joe Hill, then I
Which that's
started to kind of branch out. Then
probably
I got like
my
really into horror.
that
My bookshelf is pretty big. If you look at my videos, you can see it sometimes. You can only see about half of it. The whole right half is only horror. So that I've got a lot of horror, which is, you know, probably 3 times as big as my fantasy section. It's really, fantasy's been the last couple of years for me. And sci-fi, I'm still like a noobish. I still read some sci-fi, but definitely not like the hard stuff. I've not been able to get into like the stuff where the science matters more than the characters yet. I haven't gotten there.
it's an acquired taste. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean the Expanse. I've read a couple; they were good. Red Rising is probably my favorite series of all time, um, as long as he sticks the landing on Red God. Um, but yeah, definitely not like Three Body Problem is one that people have been trying to get me to read, and
yeah, I haven't really.
every time they pitch it to me, I'm like, this sounds like the opposite of what I want you to tell me. Like, yeah, the characters don't really matter; it's about this, and I'm like, I'm a Stephen King fan, man. Like, characters are that's everything. Like, I'm 8 of my top 10 books in my video were coming of age for a reason, right? Like I love coming of age stories. I love like just messy life stuff, right? And sci-fi for the most part. I think that's why The Expanse worked for me for the couple books that I've read. Is I mean, there's those characters are real characters. They're not just kind of fill-ins. And then obviously Red Rising is basically fantasy in space. So,
Yeah,
are you all caught up on Red Rising?
Oh, I haven't read it. I know. You know, it was funny. I had Iskandaria on here a few weeks ago. It was actually about a month ago now. And we were just kind of hanging out and talking about, books and the like. And, like, the kind of running theme of that episode was me talking about all the books I haven't read yet.
I mean, we're all there, man. Like I'm
like a hardcore like sci-fi nerd, so like I get like I'm like real picky about science fiction. So
yeah, I would go into Red Rising more looking for like sci fantasy. It's a science fiction world, but it's more of a fantasy story, in my opinion. Especially like I said, if you're looking for that like hard, idea based stuff,
Well, really, I'm not really like. You know what? I'm not going to go into that rabbit hole today. That's for another time. It's for another time. I'm not going in the rabbit hole. Today.
Maybe I can try to take you down the rabbit hole of just my long con goal here is to get Fantasy BookTube to read more horror. That's my long con goal.
Have you watched bastard. Give me a second. I'm gonna let my cat in real quick. Just
You're good. Get your
ass in here. What are you doing? Come here. The august Miss Jerry. She's my cat.
Oh.
She's the team mascot at some Okie dude.
There you go.
Like
yeah, that's my goal. I want everybody to read more horror. I want more horror in my fantasy. That's another thing I would love. So.
Oh well.
I've given away the long plot.
Well, there is a series called Bazlag by China Mieville. The first two, I think, are worth reading. The third one...
I need to read him. I have not read him yet.
But if you like horror, Perdido Street Station is basically like steampunk. Put a sprig of sci-fi in there. Then a whole heaping of cosmic horror with some weird creatures. Bam!
It's on the list. It's on the list for this year for sure.
Perdido Street Station at least. Because that has like major cosmic horror vibes.
Yeah. That's another one, though, that I've been told, like, hey, set aside time for this. Like lock in on that book when you read it.
And I'm sure there's, Dark Tower gets pretty spooky at times.
God, I love the Dark Tower, as you know. But again, like I said at the end of my video, like...
Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that.
I know that not everyone will love the Dark Tower because, like, you've got to embrace the mess.
It's one...
You've got to be cool with King. You've got to be as much interested in what King is doing as you are in the story. Like, that's something I try to get across in my video essay was, like, embrace that chaos of... I'm reading this book and this thing is happening, and I want to connect it to what was King going through in that moment. Like, why is bro writing? Because it's over 40 years of writing, multiple drug addictions, multiple alcohol addictions, multiple bouts of depression, like all these things are happening in his life.
There's like a couple of moments.
You can almost kind of see it happening as you're reading the books.
There's a couple of moments where he was kind of hitting the cocaine a little too hard, and he's just like,
"Woo!" Wait, I call that a Tommy Knockers moment. If you've ever read Tommy Knockers, it's called a Tommy Knockers moment.
I mean, when even he acknowledges how bad that book is, like it's kind of like. And, like, look, there's some good stuff.
I love it, dude. I love that book.
There's some good stuff in there, but it's like, bro, you could tell he was hitting the drugs really hard.
I love that book, man. Another one that is like that.
It's okay that you like it. I'm not judging you for liking it. I personally do not.
It's part of... Is it part of 4 Past Midnight? I can't remember. The Langoliers.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember which short story collection. But that's another one where you're reading it, you're going... bro was on some stuff while he was writing this.
Oh
But I
yeah,
think
even
that's
in
part
it.
of the appeal, man. It's part of the
Even in
appeal for the
it,
Dark
there's some
Tower.
moments where you're like, dude, like, calm down, bro. Like,
I'll never forget. I'm not going to give any spoilers here, but my sister was reading through the Dark Tower, and she calls me, and I knew she was in like book 5, and no spoilers, but she just goes like, "Did he just blank? Like, did he just do this in the story?" And I was like, "Yep." Like, and he's going to do about 3 more things in the story that are even crazier, right? Like, because book 5 is really where he started to go, can I do this? Yeah, I'm Stephen King. I can just do this, right? Like, no one's going to stop me. I'm just going to do it. And that really kicks in like book 5. And then after that, she probably called me 2 or 3 more times to just be like, no, you're right. He like one-upped himself here, and now he's doing this. And I think
yeah,
it's
I
just,
mean,
it's part of the appeal of the series for me.
I know I will say, I often say this. I think that the Dark Tower is easily one of the gutsiest fantasy series I've ever read. Like,
sure.
it does things that other fantasy would not dare to do unless you're like China Mieville or something like that.
Yeah. Well, if you put yourself in his shoes, right? Like, especially book 4 and on, whatever he put out was going to sell gangbusters, especially like the normal stuff. And so I think he viewed the Dark Tower as basically like, I'm so secure as a writer that I can just do whatever I want in this series, because one, I'm going to sell at least 1 book a year that's going to be like bought by everyone. Doesn't matter what it is. And then I can do the Dark Tower and just do what I want. Right? Like, I'm just gonna do what comes to mind, and it doesn't matter, because I've got this steady flow of novels that are coming. And it's interesting too. Like, there's a couple books of his that I hate, but I actually have enjoyed reading them.
What books are? What are the books you don't like? If you don't like
Cell
the
is
Tommy
atrocious.
Cell's pretty bad. Oh yeah, Cell's bad.
And it's fun to hear him talk about, like, Cell was one of like his first like I'm sober novels, right? Like,
I thought Needful Things was his first sober novel.
I like Needful Things. I like Needful Things. It's hard sometimes to put some of these things on timelines too with him, because like he goes back to the well a lot, where it's like, oh, I wrote the first half of this when I was 22. And then I put it away, and then I picked it back,
Kind of like The Gunslinger. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Which is what's frustrating about the Dark Tower, is trying to pitch it to people. It's like, okay, I'll just put it this way. The Gunslinger will make or break it for you. If you don't like it, fine. If you do, keep going on. It's one of the craziest fantasy series you'll ever read in your life.
I wish people would at least go through book 2, because in my opinion,
even he's gone like, that's where the story kind of like, that's where it came together, really. Like,
in my opinion, book 2 is where he opens the door for y'all. It's about to get wild, right? Like, it's where he starts to really mix genres. You could end book 1 and be like, okay, this is like a journey fantasy. Cool. You can't end book 2 and be like, yes, it's just a journey fantasy. You're like, no, never mind. It's a portal fantasy, and it's this, and it's that. And it's like, that's when you really start to see what he's going to do in terms of like bringing in all those different elements. And so, I mean, I would like for people to get through the drawing of the 3, especially because you really only get 3 characters in the first book, right? 3 main characters. Book 2 is where you get Eddie, who, in my opinion, is like the game changer for the series in terms of tone. That Eddie was the first time that I was like, oh, this isn't going to be just a high fantasy series, or like it's not going to have just the vibe that Roland brings. He throws Eddie in there, and you're like, oh, this guy could be from It.
Have you read
this guy could be from any of these regular Stephen King novels.
Have you read the original poem that inspired the book?
Yes.
The series. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's say.
Like I said, dude, I've got a I wish I brought it over here. I have a Dark Tower like compendium / like like a cross reference book that has.
Oh my gosh!
It's like this. It's like this big. It's really cool.
That sounds cool.
It's like annotated and all. It's. I found it in a used bookstore one time. I was just like, I need that. One thing I do need though is I need to get nice hardcovers of each of them. I only have the mass markets of all of them. I read them all mass market, and so I'd love to find like some nice old hardcover first editions or something. I have probably 10, 15 King first editions, so it'd be cool to add those to the collection. My Pet Cemetery first edition is my favorite one. It's sick.
Yeah, Pet Cemetery is, in my opinion, his best like straight horror novel. I know a lot of people say The Shining. I know a lot of people say like, well,
The Shining The Shining has a special place in my heart. I always have a hard time deciding on my favorite King novels, and The Shining's always up there. But The Shining has a special place in my heart because I grew up partially in an abusive alcoholic household.
oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so like that. The first time I read that, I was like, okay, this is hitting a little, a little close to home. But I loved the way that he handled it, especially, at the end, and kind of the way that things wrapped up and the way that he, this is the reason why he hated the movie, right? Because the main character in The Shining is supposed to be a picture of what the conflict that arises internally when you are an addict. And how you can love something with every fiber of your being, but then love something else so much that it could cause you to be monstrous to the things you love. And in the movie, he's just evil, like from minute one.
Well,
right? In my opinion, I think, and I know that's King's King's thing too. He's definitely not a conflicted character in the way that he is in the book.
I mean, you're right, but I think Kubrick was going for something a little different. Like I don't really think of Kubrick's version of The Shining as a straight up adaptation. It's
right.
I like to call it another version of the story.
Right.
Kind of like how it's kind of like how I think of Apocalypse Now. It's not a straight adaptation of Heart of Darkness. It's a different version of the story, but it deals with the same themes.
Yeah, and I can see where King King has said before that that Jack was written in a lot of ways to mirror King's struggle with alcoholism. So I'm sure it was weird to see yourself in a character and then you go to the movie theaters and the guy that was supposed to be you is just evil, right?
It's a deranged maniac.
I'm sure that was weird. So like that one, I wouldn't even call that straight horror. Kind of like you're saying, like it's a little bit more. I would say Pet Cemetery probably. I tell you a really creepy one that people don't talk about enough. That's a great entry point for King. Is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon.
I started reading that in 2020, and then I stopped because 2020 was not a fun time, and I got really depressed, and I just was like not feeling like I had a massive reading slump. So wasn't fun.
That one's it's dark. It's dark in a weird way. So like, I think that's a great entry point for King because bro writes a horror novel from the viewpoint of a little girl, and it feels like feels like you're in the head of a little girl, but it still feels like an adult horror novel. And I don't know how he accomplishes that. Like almost every time I read someone who is trying to write from the perspective of like a young person, either the young person feels like an adult or those sections feel YA, right? That's a really difficult thing to accomplish. King can write from the perspective of like a little 11-year-old girl in the woods who just loves baseball and is scared to death. And you feel like she's real. She's really 11, but you also feel like you're reading like an adult novel. And like his ability to do that's pretty unparalleled. I think it's why he's so good at like coming of age novels. McCammon is the same way. All great coming of age novels, that's what they do. They make you feel like you're a child, but the story is written in a way that you don't feel like you're reading a children's book. That was pretty short too, which is another reason why I think it's a good entry point. I'm a sucker for Hearts in Atlantis. Don't know if you've ever read Hearts in Atlantis.
I've not read that one yet.
It is technically like 5 novellas, or 3 novellas and 2 short stories. I forgot exactly what the links are. But they're all interconnected. So one character from each story is in the next story type situation. And the first one is direct Dark Tower. It is a straight up Dark Tower story. With character crossovers. And then the second story, though, is the titular story, Hearts in Atlantis. It's just a story about some college kids during, I believe it was the Vietnam War, who are trying not to get drafted. So they go to college. They don't want to get drafted. They don't really want to be in college, but they don't want to get drafted. And then they become obsessed with the card game Hearts. And like to the point of like addiction. And it's just a coming of age slice of life story about some college kids dealing with life. And it's absolutely beautiful. I'm obsessed with it. That's one that people don't talk about enough. But I really don't have a ton of his that I hated. I didn't love the Bill Hodges trilogy. It was fine.
I haven't read those yet.
I would say it's bottom half for me. The second one was the best of the three. I'm tired of Holly. He's got to stop. I mean, if you've never read the Bill Hodges trilogy, every time he puts out a Holly book, you can't even read it. Like, because you got to know Holly from the Bill Hodges trilogy. The Outsider was solid. And if you've never watched that show, the show was actually really good for The Outsider. But yeah, I would say he hasn't had too many for me that were like total misses. Cell was a absolute total miss. I like Tommyknockers. I know most people don't, but I would say
too
probably
long. It's too bloated.
I would say
too much of that druggy king in there. It just felt like him burning out.
I'm good with it.
It's fine. I mean, dude, you got a wild imagination on your own. Like, read some of those later Dark Tower. He was not on drugs, I don't think.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that's and like I said, that kind of kicked off for me reading, like getting back into fiction at a high level. And then that kind of moved into mostly, again, just reading horror, but branching out past him. And then my buddy Dave, who I shout out all the time in my videos because he's my best buddy. He's like my reading boy. He convinced me to read First Law. That was the first epic fantasy that I had read, like, since Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and everything when I was a kid. And I guess Dark Tower. But I had just viewed the Dark Tower as reading more King at that point. And he was like, hey, you should read this First Law. I think you'll like it. I'm like, I don't really read fantasy, but sure, I'll pick it up. He's like, no, it's dark. It's kind of like horror. And I read all 3 books in like a week and a half on a cruise. Like we were on a cruise. My wife's parents took us on a cruise, and which is the only way I would have been able to go on a cruise. And I just smoked through those bad boys. And I was like, this is sick. Like, I need more of this. So then Dave got me to read Gentlemen Bastards. I was like, this is also this is sick. And then that kind of was it. I was like, okay, now we're reading fantasy. And I'd already been watching Mike's book reviews for his.
I was going to ask you if you watched Mike's. I'm like, Mike likes horror.
I was watching him for his. So he was doing the Stephen King Into the Multiverse videos. And I was watching those.
He does those from time to time.
Yeah, he hasn't done one in a while. But man, if you would have told me 4 years ago that like I would have had Mike in a YouTube video and like talked to him, that would have been crazy. Because I mean, him and Daniel Green were probably the only 2 YouTubers that I watched for book stuff, and I would only watch Daniel when he talked about Stephen King. And so then I got into fantasy, and then I basically just went back and started watching all of Mike and Daniel's stuff when they talked about the stuff that I skipped before. And I was like, okay, I remember like he talked about that. Let's go back and watch that. And that was all she wrote, man. It was just, now I'm a fantasy nerd who spends way too much money on books.
Don't we all? I mean, look, I don't know if you can kind of see my couch. I have books just lying everywhere. It is obscene. And comics, but I mean, as well, because
you could have worse things you spend your money on, you know.
Yeah, you know, I was joking with my parents the other day. I'm like, well, I guess there's worse things that you could blow money on, and my dad was like, totally right, Britton.
Yeah,
there are worse things to blow money.
I remember when I first asked my wife, I was like, hey, honey, I think I'm gonna put my name on this list for like this special edition book thing.
Oh my god,
talking about broken binding, right? Like, she doesn't understand.
She
doesn't live in this world, right? So like, I'm like, but I'm not on it yet. I just am on a wait list for it. And she's like,
Uh-huh.
what are you talking about? So I was like, don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure the line is like 8 years long. I'll never get in. And then like a year later, I get the email and I'm like, honey, I'm in. Like, I'm going to get the book every month. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. How much does it cost? I'm like, after shipping, it's like $60. And she's like, one book? I'm like trying to explain to her, right? I'm like, but no, like the edges are painted.
Oh
She
man.
reads. She reads, but you should see like when she finishes a book, it's got like coffee stains on it. It's curled, right? Like she destroys books. And so I'm like, no, you have to understand, like this is like a collectible almost item. And so she's been a trooper as I have evolved from like gym frat bro to nerd who reads books too much and now has a YouTube channel. So
You said you also like sports. So like, what sports do you follow?
so I played baseball in college.
Mm.
I still work in the baseball world too. I have my second job. I'm a director of college recruiting for a travel baseball organization,
That's
the
cool.
Richmond Braves. So I work with all of our high school guys. I help them find colleges to play for. I work with the coaches and coordinate that piece of things, which is fun. So I watch a lot of baseball, mostly college baseball. Don't watch a lot of pros. I'm a Pirates fan though, so I do watch Pirates games. I watch a decent amount of hockey. I like hockey a lot. And I watch a ton of football, but I do not watch. You're going to be mad at me. I do not watch college football.
Oh.
Part of my problem was I went to 2 different colleges. I went to the first school that was a smaller school I played baseball at. And then when I transferred to Liberty, and they were so bad at football at that point in time. We just didn't watch football. So it was like, I felt weird rooting for another school because I didn't go there. Like my sister went to Virginia Tech. So like we were technically Tech fans, but I just didn't feel like a connection to it because I didn't go to Tech.
So, like, do you watch more NFL? Like, are you a Steelers fan?
I do. I'm a Steelers fan. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I'm Pittsburgh in every sport. I love basketball. I don't have a team because there's no team in Pittsburgh, and I'm very serious.
Wow, there's no team in. That's surprising.
Nope. Closest team would technically be Cleveland.
You don't want to touch that foul Cleveland.
No. I'm a LeBron fan.
Okay.
So like I watch a lot. I watch a lot of basketball, but I don't have a team. I wish there was a team. I don't watch college football though. I know that hurts your heart.
It does a little bit. It does.
Yeah. But college baseball.
But I do watch. I do watch NFL too. So Super Bowl is tomorrow, as of the recording of this conversation.
Dude, you couldn't pick. I mean, well, the Ravens, but outside of the Ravens, you couldn't pick 2 teams that I wanted less. Like
big rematch.
I'm a Pittsburgh fan, so we don't like Philly, right? Like it's not. And the Chiefs are the Chiefs. And if my daughter, who is 8, says to me one more time, when are they gonna show Taylor Swift again? I'm gonna break my television.
Oh,
she's like, Dad, is the football game on? It's like not even the Chiefs. Are they gonna show Taylor Swift again? I'm like, what does sports come to?
No, my dad has a soft spot for the Steelers because he grew up watching like the Iron Curtain from like the 70s.
Yeah, that's how I got it. My dad forced it on me as a child, which is fine. And I do have some family in that area.
I thought Detroit was going to do it. I thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl, but
that would have been nice, man.
Sorry, Chris, if you watched this.
After the Steelers lost, this is kind of how my brain went. So after the Steelers lost, I wanted Matt Stafford to win because I just have a soft spot for Matt Stafford. I feel like he's the closest thing to Big Ben, and I miss Big Ben. And so once Matt Stafford lost, then it was the Commanders because I'm from Virginia and everybody around me is a Commanders fan, and Jaden Daniels is pretty
How
good.
did you get into Pittsburgh?
My dad.
Oh, your dad?
And like I said, I have my aunt lives in Aliquippa, which is like 15 minutes away, and then my sister lives in like South Central PA.
Oh, okay.
So it's not too bad. We go up there a couple times a year. But yeah, that's why since I'm not from Pittsburgh, I especially am like cognizant of the bandwagon thing, and that's why like I'm a Pirates fan, I'm a Penguins fan, I'm a Steelers fan. I don't have an NBA team because they don't have an NBA team. Like I'm
I
not
am
a
I am a
you know,
Cowboys fan, so
oh
just
no.
yeah.
That's normal for Oklahoma people, right? It's like
Yeah,
a pretty
no,
common.
like
Yeah.
most of us, we either like the Cowboys, the
Uh-huh.
Texans, or Kansas City. The guy who lived behind me before he moved out, he was a big Kansas City fan, and I was
I
like, oh man,
can't do it, man. I got no issues with Mahomes. He's fantastic. He might be the greatest quarterback ever at this point.
he's literally the new Brady at this point. Like everyone's like,
Yeah, but
oh,
like it
retired,
reminds me
stop.
so much of Brady though, because like I'll never forget watching. I'm old, so I'll never forget watching like how they would call stuff against Mike Vick and against like early Cam Newton, early Ben Roethlisberger, like these bigger guys, these more athletic guys.
Uh huh.
And then like if Tom Brady got touched, flag. But like Big Ben could get like picked up, like hit in the back of the knees with a police baton. No one would do anything, right? Like Cam Newton, Cam Newton literally got like abused for 5 straight years, where because he was so big, they just thought, oh, we're never gonna call it. Tom Brady, dude, you poke on the dude, and they're that's how Mahomes is, man. Like they touch that dude and just flag. He breathed on him incorrectly. Like,
Yeah, the
so
NFL
frustrating.
refs are always inconsistent.
Why? It's funny, man. It's inconsistence part of it. Mahomes also knows how to sell it, right? And that was something that
he does
like
the
that was
flop.
yeah, that was something Roethlisberger didn't know how to do, right? Roethlisberger was trying to break every tackle, so like he'd get hit and it'd be a roughing the passer, but it wouldn't look bad, so they wouldn't throw the flag. It didn't look
Yeah,
bad,
for all
right?
of Ben Roethlisberger's faults, he was tough. He was
Yeah,
tough.
it's the same exact reason why LeBron had to learn how to flop. Because early LeBron would get clotheslined in the lane and no one would call a foul because he was just so strong
He's
that
big.
it didn't look bad. And so like no one would call it. And then he figured out one day that he had to make it look bad. And so now he flops. And it's the ref's fault because they weren't like there's videos of him getting like basically choke slammed, in like the first couple years in the league, and
Damn.
no no technicals being called at all, and it's like because he never left his feet, like
Oh.
because it didn't look bad. And then you flash forward now, and everybody in the league's just like flopping around like
Yeah, though, like
nobody's
with
business.
Tom
But
Brady, like he wasn't much like a runner like Patrick
no,
Mahomes is. Like he would stand there and just chuck it,
yeah, but heaven forbid you touch the sticker on his helmet after he let go of the ball. But yeah. I dislike Tom Brady because the Patriots were just so dominant. Like during a time where I think Ben
Yeah,
could
I
have
was
won
always more
3
of
or
a
4 championships, like Brady was the problem.
I was always more of like a Peyton fan. I really
I like
liked
Peyton.
Favre back in the day.
That's why I would have liked to have seen Matt Stafford win it once the Steelers were out. I feel like Stafford has that vibe of like a true like
Well, he won a Super Bowl.
gunslinger. Stafford?
Yeah, he won a Super
Stafford
Bowl.
is a Super Bowl? Oh,
Yeah, he did. When he was it was a few years ago when the Rams played the Bengals.
you're right. Well, I wanted to have another one then.
Oh,
How's
okay.
that sound?
No, but
But- I mean, anybody but the Ravens or the Chiefs or the Eagles.
oh yeah, not a Ravens fan.
I'm a Steelers fan, man.
Oh well, yeah.
We're not allowed to like the Ravens.
So you're not a fan of the Browns either.
I don't have to worry about the Browns. They suck.
Yeah,
Well,
poor
man,
Browns.
I have a buddy. He's a super big Browns fan, and he's
Oh,
like,
that
"Oh,
guy.
dude, the rivalry's renewed this year." And I'm like, "There's no rivalry. Like, there's us, and then there's you guys. Like, you have to be competitive for there to be a rivalry."
Oh,
Bengals
Lord.
can't stand the Bengals, but that's okay.
Were you there when Barfick just blasted Antonio Brown and that gave them the game where they kicked the field goal? Oh my God, I
Um,
remember that
I
game.
was I remember that game. I was actually at the Week 17 game. I think 2 years before that when they rolled up Le'Veon Bell, and that was a huge penalty flag, and we ended up winning by a field goal. That wasn't perfect. That was who was the corner that they used to play for the Cowboys and brought a gun into the strip club.
Oh, jeez, I don't.
You remember? Oh, dude, he played for the Cowboys for a while.
Wow, man, I forgot about that
And then
guy.
he went Pac-Man Jones.
Oh yes,
Yeah. Pac-Man Jones, if I remember correctly, rolled up Le'Veon bad, and we ended up winning that Week 17 to win the division. I was at that game, on like the 40-yard line, and it was sick. And then 2 years later, Antonio Brown just was never the same ever again.
No,
So
my
big
man.
sad. He used to be. I have his
Antonio
jersey
Brown
still, and
is one of the just biggest like disappointments I've ever seen in football. Like that dude could have been an all timer if I don't know.
It hurts to even think about him and I don't know if you remember this name, but Shazier was gonna be a Hall of Famer before his like spine injury that caused him to never be able to play again.
Well,
He was. They've talked to Big Ben about it, and basically what Big Ben said was he was on track to like essentially run that defense for the next 10 years and be all pro all 10 years and just be the guy. He was their whole defense. And then when he got hurt, it was like, because I mean, the way the Steelers run their defense, if they don't have linebackers who can cover ground to cause issues, especially like in the first 5 yards, then they can't. Their corners aren't good enough, especially back then. They did not put money into their corners, and so it was like, okay, we're going to pressure the quarterback. We're going to let Palomalu do what he does, and Palomalu retires, and they needed a new guy to do that kind of stuff.
I like Palomalu. He seemed like a cool guy.
Shazier. Yeah, I think he's cool. Should have been Shazier though, but then what a terrible, terrible injury.
No, I really like Jerome Bettis when I was a kid.
His restaurant is really good in Pittsburgh. The first time I went there, it's right on the water, like probably less than half a mile from the stadium. I got a double cheeseburger. It was like their cheeseburger special, and it was deep fried. So like the full double cheeseburger was put on a stick and then put in the deep fryer and then covered in dough. So like you couldn't see the cheeseburger. It looked like a big ball of dough, and then you bit into it, and there was a whole cheeseburger in there, Britton.
Oh, that sounds really,
dude.
Sounds really good.
Dude, you talk about good, but
Oh, that sounds good. It does sound good. No, but I remember. Oh man, what was I gonna? Yeah, I liked Jerome Bettis when I was a kid, but yeah, there's that line, The Sopranos. I feel like I came in late. The good times are over. That's what it feels like being a Cowboys fan in my age. I'm only 23.
Yeah,
it's like, good Lord. I just came in right as they were just sucking, and then they get good for a little bit, and they just go right back to sucking, and it's just ugh.
That was as long as Jerry Jones has his hands in things. Y'all are never gonna consistently win. So sorry to break it to you.
I know. I mean, I've accepted it at this point.
Just lean on Oklahoma, man.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Football.
Me and my dad were talking
at this point.
Me and my dad were talking
at this
about
point. I don't even know how. Like, I don't even know who's good anymore in college football. I don't even pay attention. I know that. Like, I know what NIL and all of that has done on the college baseball side because like that's the world I live in my other job.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard it's like 10 times crazier in college football.
Oh yeah,
So,
I have tons of problems with how NIL is run.
It's interesting. I have a very unique perspective on it because I have players who I've worked with who could only go to college because of the introduction of NIL, like as far as affording it. But then I also have players who like showed up on campus day one, and there was a new player there who was like a Vandy decommit who wasn't supposed to be on the roster, and then now that Vandy decommit's got like a big NIL deal, and that kid gets cut because the Vandy commit took his spot. Basically, like that's the opposite side of things. where it's created essentially like a free agency to the level where like committing to play at a college and high school, you really don't even know if you're going to like get there and things are going to look like you thought they were, because now players just move every year. They go wherever they want, right?
Mm,
It's essentially free agency. So it's like before, I talk to the players I work with, before we'll be like, okay, say you're a catcher, right? Like, let's make sure we look at the roster of the team, talk to the coaches about how many catchers they're bringing in so that your depth chart looks good, right? And that you have a good chance of playing. Well, now with like the way that the transfer portal and stuff works, if I want to, leave school in June and go to a different school, I just throw my name in. And if I'm good, maybe I'll get some money out of it. That means that all that work that kid did to figure out how many catchers were going to be on the roster, it's almost null and void, because 3 catchers could leave and 4 catchers could show up like that, right? Whereas before it was more difficult for that to happen. So it's an interesting, conversation. I mean, I have kids who play at smaller schools who have NIL deals to like Bojangles, and they get like free breakfast like on game day, and that for them is like sweet. Like that's
that
their
actually
NIL
sounds
deals.
pretty. That sounds
Like
pretty
they get
dope,
like
actually.
they get like 2 Bowberry biscuits if they hit a home run.
That actually sounds pretty fun.
Right.
Like get a free breakfast before a game.
Yeah, and then they have to put on their Instagram like a video of them eating it. Like, thanks again to Bojangles for my Bowberry biscuit. Like hashtag ad. Like, it's great. So like NIL is wild, dude. You got people making $7 million, and you got people getting stoked over Bowberry biscuits.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be like a regulation to this thing, because it's like,
I agree.
It's like, my lord, you could just like leave. You could just be like, all right, put my name in, take me wherever you will.
We've heard. I didn't expect to get into this world at all on this chat, but we've heard like we've heard of kids who have gone, like, so SEC kids, right? Like where the big money is, right? We've heard kids who've gone to their coaches and be like, "Hey, I'm going to hit the portal. What is y'all's initial offer? Like, give me what you're going to give me next year in NIL if I stay." And then they go to all the SEC schools and they go, "Okay, well, Tennessee said they were going to give me X." And then Mississippi State either matches that or does better. And then I heard of one specific kid who essentially did this with every team in the SEC. And then he went back to the school that he had declared that he was going to leave, because you don't have to actually leave. You can go back. And they matched and added money to like the highest deal that he had gotten. And so he essentially just leveraged free agency, right? Like June hit and he said, "I'm really good. I want $2 million." And then he just asked all the schools and then used them against each other. Like that's college sports now, right? And if it's happening in baseball, it's happening in football, like to the nth degree, because football makes so much more money. So if I'm hearing about it in my world, I can't imagine what like the quarterback that just left to go to Miami. I forgot where he was at before Miami. But a big quarterback left to go to Miami this year. And like, we're on the street was like, Miami was just like, here's millions of dollars. That's crazy.
Where do they get all that money? But I digress.
Donors. Mostly donors.
Oh, geez.
Really rich people who want to see those teams win. I've had college coaches be like, "Man, like, I really want to get this kid, but we don't have enough scholarship money left. Let me call donors and be like, if we get this player, we will win. How bad do you want to win? All right, give me $500,000, and we'll go get Jimmy so we can win." Right? Like that's how a lot of it's happening.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I'll get back to books, but yeah, I will say I do think there needs to be some like regulation to this.
For sure.
A little bit. That would be nice.
I think there will be eventually. There'll have to be.
I hope so. I mean, there definitely needs to be, because I'm just like, you can just freaking leave. Like, there's not like you don't need to like sign a form or something. You need to like introduce that. I'm not saying like the NIL shouldn't exist because like look, there are a bunch of college athletes who got screwed over the years, and it's like, you know, that's not cool. We need to change that. I'm glad we did change that, but at the same time, it's like we need like a regulation for this thing. It's kind of
they've got a couple ideas kind of down the pipeline a little bit right now that they're talking through, but at the end of the day with the NCAA, it's all going to come down to money, right? And
the moolah.
Think about it this way: the more money exists for players, and the more opportunity players have to leave and go to better situations, the more players stay in college longer. And if they stay in college longer, the product is better. And if the product is better, people spend more money on it. And so the NCAA doesn't really have an incentive to drive like a junior in college to go to the draft. If he could stay for 5 years and make a bunch of money for them, why would they not want that? And so if NIL is so good that kids are saying no to the draft, like we had a kid in our area who sandbagged the draft, meaning he went to all of his draft stuff and he said, I don't want to be drafted. Do not draft me. I will not sign. Don't draft me. Because LSU had given him more money for NIL than he was ever going to see in the draft. And so he went to college, should have never gone to college, went to college, played in college, and LSU's product was better while he was in college, which makes who money?
LSU?
The NCAA. And the NCAA, right? So the NCAA doesn't have any reason to kind of like pull that down, because the more they pull it down, you'll see kids getting drafted earlier again. You'll see kids kind of like lean back into the traditional, I want to get out of school as quickly as I can approach, which doesn't make the NCAA as much money. In basketball, are you less one and dones? Because I could take a second round pick and make a couple $100,000, or I could stay at Duke, right, and make $500K. I'll just stay at Duke, and that makes the NCAA more money. So, and that's all that matters for them.
Fair enough. It is kind of a business at the end of the day.
Yeah. How many people that are watching this video thought they were going to get a rundown on how NILs work?
I did not, but hey, that's
I'm sure they're like, we're going to talk about books and like.
We can go back to books. I like talking.
Dustin was going to eventually sling Jesus in there at some point. Never thought they were going to get NIL deals.
Well, speaking of books, I guess this has to do with comic books or manga, but I have heard through the grapevine that our mutual friend, Slay, from the Talking Story Discord, gave you Berserk.
He gave me the first 2 volumes, yeah.
Which,
and I am currently reading the first one.
That must be wild. What are you thinking about that?
It's something. Let's just say
don't let your kids read that for starters.
Let's just say the first page exists. And I texted him after I saw the first page and was like, what have you bought me? Like, what's happening right now? But I think I'm going to overall enjoy it. Like I said, man, as much as I come from like the horror world reading wise, like I've read some pretty dark stuff. It's a little different seeing it visually, but like, I mean, like I remember people like, man, like First Law is going to be dark, dude. And I read it and was like, right. Yeah.
I mean, it is dark. Pretty dark, but like, it's not
but coming from some like some weird, dark psychological horror stuff. Like, here's the thing for me. I think the scariest thing in the world is the notion
there's levels of darkness, you know.
Yeah, like for me, because I'm very, in my opinion, I'm very in tune with my personal worldview. So like, the scariest thing for me are the things that are real, and like one of the scariest things that I have read in literature is when people deal with like the depravity of man and like what humans can do. Just like within their own selves, right? That's why I love King. King handles that.
Well, First Law does that a little bit,
right? But like big, nasty, scary, like gory, fantastical stuff. Like that's not as scary to me as like what happens in Pet Cemetery. What's scary about what happens in Pet Cemetery is like what the people do,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what's
Mm-hmm.
scary to me in Pet Cemetery.
Well, yeah, that's what
Because it's
King's good
real.
at.
Right. It's what's real, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's scary in The Shining is like what our main character can become, right? Because like that's real. And so coming from that like frame of mind, I've found that a lot of the stuff that people have pointed out is like that's going to be a lot. It's going to be dark. It's going to be this. Like I'm kind of like, yeah, like people can and will be that, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
just happens to be set in a pretty gross like fantasy world in a lot of these settings. But like, I think with Berserk, that'll be okay for me.
Ah, man.
I
Mm,
We'll
mm,
see. We'll
mm.
see. I mean, the big personal conviction for me is like as long as it's not glorified, right? Like so as long as the
Oh,
goal
no,
of
it's
the
not
author is
glorified.
right. If the goal of the author is
It's
not to
just
say, hey,
super
there's this
graphic.
guy, right? There's this guy Guts, and these things that he is doing are like the things that you should adopt ethically. Then, right? Then, like, why would I be offended by it? It's not the moral of the story to be that, right? That's another place where like I think people totally miss the boat when they talk about should Christians read this or should
Mm.
is this appropriate for a Christian to read? A lot of times what they do is they take things that are described in the story and they assume that they're like prescribed, like that the author wants that to be a good thing. And it's
Uh-huh.
like just because it exists within the story doesn't mean that the author is promoting it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we see that like the problem is that, and this is a little bit of a different tangent, is many people read their Bibles like that too, right?
I
They're
was about
like,
to say,
oh, like
guys, the Bible
right, they
is
read their Bibles
about
like that, where they're
as
like, oh, this
violent
person,
and
yeah, this
insane.
person does this thing, so therefore it must be good, right? We call it prescribing the descriptive in
Uh-huh.
biblical theology, where you take something that's just a description of an action and you say that's what should be done. In a similar way, when people talk about fiction, sometimes they're like, "Oh my gosh, that has X in it. That's terrible." And I'm like, the author agrees with you, right? But like these things happen in real life, and so they need to be in a story that is supposed to be believable.
Yeah,
That's
that
supposed
kind
to
of
have
opens up
connections to real
another
life.
can of
Yeah,
worms of thing that
I have lots of
bothers me
cans
as
of
well.
worms. So,
But I
but
agree with you
for
though.
Berserk, I think I'll be okay because again, I don't think these things are being thrust forward as like the moral of the story. One that's more interesting to me is like I haven't read any of it, but like R. Scott Baker and is it Prince of Nothing?
Yeah,
Where
Slay's
like
told me a lot about that.
right, one of the defining characteristics of that is this like nihilistic, deterministic kind of worldview piece that is being thrust forward by the author as like this is what life is like. I'll probably like that a lot less because
Mm.
like um it's the intent of the author, right, to promote that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like that's not me. That's not for me. So one of the things I love about King is that like even though he's not a Christian, like he oftentimes plays on biblical themes in a way that is like almost promoting of at least like vaguely biblical concepts,
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure.
Like
Especially in like
justice and hope and um and like the power of relationships to overcome things like addiction and stuff like that. So
I've heard
um
revival deals a lot with like not maybe not religious. Well, yes, religious themes, but also spiritual themes as well. I haven't read revival yet, though.
yeah,
I do own it. It's right over there,
it
but I want
does.
to
It
pull it
does.
out.
And at first I struggled through revival a little bit because one of the main characters is like he's a pastor at the beginning of the story. And, no, I don't want to spoil anything, but like he's a very conflicted character who does some pretty awful things. Um, but again, at no point did I think that King was saying like this guy is the good guy that is doing everything you're supposed to be doing.
Uh
And
huh.
so when he does this terrible stuff, I'm not offended by it. Why would I? King's trying to teach a lesson that I actually think is a positive one, within the framework of that story, which is it deals with grief and just how much we can be consumed by things to the point where we basically our entire person changes.
Isn't it the preacher who kind of like starts tinkering with stuff? Like I've heard it's kind of
Yeah.
like Frankenstein a little bit.
I don't want to spoil it for you.
Okay.
Just read it. It's good.
Like I know the gist of the
pretty
book
wild.
is like it's about this priest, something horrible happens to him, and he just kind of tries to figure out, what's the meaning of all this.
He essentially
using
goes
nefarious means.
Yeah, he essentially abandons the faith, but becomes like a prosperity street healer preacher. And there's some stuff in the background that I don't want to spoil that like allows that to be something that he does pretty successfully. But it's like a ruse, right? And while that's going on, he attaches himself to a younger character and then begins to explore some pretty wild things. But at no point in the story is King like, hey, this is the dude you should be trying to be like. Right. And so it doesn't bother me that he's a conflicted mess who hates God. Another good example is like someone asked me how I could read Empire of the Vampire because I don't know if you've read that.
I have not, but I know of it.
The main character hates God. Like he makes it extremely clear, right? Now, not
a fan of Jesus.
Jesus doesn't exist in that universe. That's another thing, like I was saying earlier, right? Like the main character of Empire of the Vampire says, like, I hate God. Okay, well, this is a fictional fantasy world. So, like, whatever deity he is speaking of is not the one that's in the Bible. So, like, why would I be offended by him saying something mean about a fictional?
Like I said, I wasn't trying to insinuate that it offends you or
No,
anything.
no,
I'm just curious. I was just curious about like your thoughts on things.
Yeah, no, I
think maybe you wouldn't.
That's a little bit of a it's a hobby horse I like talking about because I think that so many Christians have gotten it so wrong. All you have to do in the fantasy space is talk to anybody, and they're like, "Yeah, every Christian I know thinks Harry Potter's the devil." And it's like, you read.
There are Christian themes in that series.
Exactly, right? And so like that's why it's a hobby horse for me. Like I get on that soapbox a little bit because I want
Jesus references in this.
I want people who aren't Christians to watch this video and at least recognize that the majority of Christians don't think like those two people who yelled at you for reading Harry Potter.
That's good. That's a good thing to
right. Like I work and live and worship in a conservative Southern Baptist church, and everybody in my church knows I read Harry Potter and like fantasy, and our senior pastor has read it. And like that's those are the normal Christians. The problem is that they aren't loud, and the minority is the one that's loud, right? Like the fringes are loud, and so I meet these people who don't know lots of normal Christians, right? And they're like, no, Christians, those are the ones who told me I was gonna like die and go to hell because I read Harry Potter, and I'm like, no. Like that's not how this works. So
no,
that's why it's a little bit of a soapbox.
I didn't want to insinuate you were like that. I get what you're saying.
No. Yeah.
It's just
I didn't feel like it did. I like to ramble about things.
I do like to read things that I don't necessarily agree with, because I find it interesting because see where that. Now, not all. There's some things I feel really strongly about. I'll be like, I don't know if I want to read that, but. I don't know if have you read any actual like H.P. Lovecraft at all?
I have. Yeah.
I was about to say I don't know.
I have the
I was about to say I don't know if
tome.
I'm sorry.
I have like the one big tome that has like almost like everything in it, and I've read through 5-6 of those. Some of them were like a page long, some of them were not. So, but it's. Lovecraft for me seems to be one of those people where I'm like, I don't love this, but I see how all the people I do love got a lot of what they're doing from this.
Yeah, that's a good. I don't really care for him myself as a writer. I like his, mythos a lot more than like his actual writing, if I could be honest.
It's almost a little too vague. Like the stuff I read is almost just like a little too open-ended, like vague cosmic thing.
Yeah, where he's like, "Oh
scares
no,
guy." Yeah, right.
Oh
yeah,
no, there's this weird thing, just like, dude, stop.
Whereas guys like King and I don't know if you've ever read The Fisherman by John Langan. Like
I have not. I've wanted to read that book for years.
So good.
I've heard it's very divisive though. Because I've heard people complain. It's like, man, that first half is so good, and he just freaking goes to then he goes to the backstory.
And then you'll hear the opposite. You'll hear that the first half is like snooze fest. The first half feels like a Stephen King slice of life. Like two dudes go fishing. Like that's the story. Right. And then you get to the story, like the story that's being told within the story. And that becomes a Lovecraftian epic quickly. And like some people just can't vibe with that shift. It feels weird. But I liked that shift. I was like, holy crap. I did not see this coming. But I've heard people who bounced off the first half because they're like, I thought I was getting this epic Lovecraftian like horror novel, and I got two dudes fishing. And so I mean, I think I don't DNF much because a lot of times there have been books that I've been on, and then I didn't DNF, and then by the time I was done, I was like, I get it. I see. I didn't like it at first, but I see what he was doing.
I was about to say, you know what you were saying about R. Scott Baker earlier. I think maybe you would feel a similar way about Lovecraft because there's not. I mean, I think most authors have a certain view that they're trying to get across to the reader, whether they believe it or not, or rather they're consciously attempting to preach at you, no pun intended, or or consciously or not. The real good ones, or like the ones who are like really trying, not like not saying like, well, even like Tom Clancy is trying to be like, bruh, America, but I'm not.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not going there. Not going there.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of similar way. I don't like that worldview. I understand it's kind of one of those things like I understand what he's doing and I appreciate how he's doing it. I don't really like his writing all that much anyway, but anyway, I made a video about this concept, but anyway, but I don't like that view of the world because it's like that's what we're just gonna like lay down and die when we see the unknown. Like no.
That is one thing I noticed reading through some of his stories was almost every one of them ended like that, right? Where it was like, I saw the thing, and it was so overwhelming that I'm now dead.
Or there's the one, my favorite example of this kind of ending that just irritated the crap out of me is the Shadow over Innsmouth. I don't know if you've read that one, but I'm gonna.
It's been a while.
I was gonna say I'm gonna spoil it if you haven't read it. So sorry, but if you have, so okay, this guy goes to this town where his grandma came from. And there's like weird, creepy fish people walking around and, kind of doing their weird fish people stuff. They try to like kidnap him and he escapes. And then the like government shows up and like blows the town all to hell. Then he ends up learning that he is part fish person, that he was a fish person the whole time. And it turns out his cousin was also a fish person, but they like put him in an asylum because they thought like he was, mentally disabled or something like that. And he's just like, dope. All right. I'm going to break my cousin out of the mental hospital and we're going to go join the fish gods and we're going to take over the world. And I'm like, that makes no sense. I'm weird. Sorry. That is stupid.
Yeah, I do think Lovecraft
I'm gonna anger the Lovecraft fans with this, but
that's okay. I do think Lovecraft is one of those, like I said earlier, one of those like I'm grateful he inspired so many authors who I think did it better later.
Yeah, no, it's not even
Uh,
like, and when I say I don't like his worldview, it's not necessarily like the racism, because I think his racism's often has become kind of overstated. Um, but it's the idea that like the universe doesn't care about you. You should just fucking curl up and die. You know, I'm just like that. I no, you're just no. I don't believe that, and I'm sorry. Like
it's a blast.
just because like I'm like yeah, just because like you're like a neurotic guy from New England who things haven't gone right for you. That doesn't mean that's how it is for the rest of humanity. Sorry,
Yeah,
like
that's why I think like
I
I
digress.
can I can engage with that kind of stuff occasionally, but like I definitely have to like cleanse the palate after if I engage with something that has um like a nihilistic of a worldview, or I don't even want to use the word nihilistic, more just hopeless. Like and that's one thing that's cool about the fantasy genre in general is like even the grimdark stuff for the most part, like
Also, like if that if
has some
oh,
hope within it, you know. Like Abercrombie's First Law for me, like even though it was nuts, like and dark and at times like very hopeless feeling. Like I can tell you right now like three positive character arcs and three places where someone found purpose, right? Like
mhm,
you can cling to those things. Like even in a grim dark world, like there are Giselles. Um
mhm.
when you have a story that doesn't have that though, like I have to like step back and cleanse the palate and
Well,
like,
I
okay,
don't
I
mind
gotta
a
go
downer
something
ending.
nice.
It's just like
Yeah.
if that's like your view of the world, though, like that's a different.
Right.
That's a different. Like I don't think that.
Yeah. Well, even like so if you have a downer ending, give me a character who within this downer ending of a world has made stride to become a better person or found hope or found purpose. So like doesn't you don't have to give me like the hunky dory ending, right?
No,
Um, but give me some growth somewhere, or give me some ray or glimmer of positivity within the negative circumstance,
there's
and we're
darkness in
good. And like I said,
Tolkien as well.
even if you don't give me that, like I said, I'll just need to like probably go have a palate cleanser read after after that to chill out for a minute. Go grab me a Dungeon Crawler Carl book or something. You know,
I haven't read any
but
of the Dungeon Crawler Carl
oh,
books.
so good, man. So good.
Like,
What a weird combo of goofy and some of the most seriously like engaging and lovable and important characters that I've read in years. Like that's the weirdest part. Is I'm like telling people about what I'm reading and they're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And I'm like, no, I would die for this cat. Right. Like you don't understand, and they're like, what do you and then they read it and they're like, oh, I'm with you. I get it. Like also dying for this cat. Like he does
I'm real
such
weird
an
about what were those called, lit RPGs, because I'm
yeah,
like, man, if it's like a video game, I just want to shoot up and play my video game. Like,
right.
Now there's some people who are
This
like,
one,
no, it's different, Britton, and I'm like, okay, all right.
I think the danger of a lot of those lit RPGs is that the character work isn't good enough, and that they just are leaning on they're leaning on the RPG aspect. With
Mm-hmm.
Crawler Carl, in comparison to in comparison to Cradle and Wandering In and all these other ones, it's better edited for sure than a lot of those books. Um, and I think it's just got better characters.
Yeah, I have to repeat some of that because my internet sometimes goes during
Okay.
so you kind of spattered out there a little bit.
Okay. No, I'm just saying. I think what sets Dungeon Crawler Carl apart is the character work that allows like the lit RPG genre to work for people who just aren't like into that normally. I haven't read a ton of lit RPG at all. Um, like I said, I'm reading a progression fantasy right now for one of my arcs. But I think the difference maker, the reason why it's now like trad published and getting pushed, and like my like Buddies Can't Go Find It and Books a Million is because I think the characters all RPG stuff to like work. You don't just feel like you're getting numbers thrown at you, which is what I've heard for a lot of the other lit RPGs. Or you have like The Wandering Inn, which is just so poorly edited that like.
Have you read The Wandering Inn?
I have not, but I every review I read is like, that's not for me. Like it's the longest series ever, and like
I don't know if I'd call Matt my friend, because I unsubscribed to him recently because he was doing some stuff that irritated me. But anyway, Matt really likes it from Matt's fantasy book reviews.
Sometimes I agree with Matt, and sometimes I disagree extremely hard with Matt. So I have a hard time. I watch Matt because I think he's entertaining, but I definitely don't view Matt as a litmus test for my likes, because sometimes he just likes stuff that I hate, and sometimes he hates stuff that I think is fantastic. He doesn't like Dark Tower. Which, I mean,
him not liking things is fine, but I watched his video about Conan the Cimmerian, which the original Robert E. Howard stories. And I thought that video was in such bad faith. I was just like, nah, screw this. I'm not watching this anymore. Which I know that sounds really petty. But he's done that a couple times, and when he did Conan, I'm just like, you know what? Screw this. Sorry, Matt, if you watch this. He doesn't freaking watch my channel all that much anyway. But, if you do watch this, I'm sorry. Just do better with your reviews. Just because, my God.
I try to remember what the last one was that I disagree with him on. I know Dark Tower. He didn't like... I agree with him on Wind and Truth, which I know that one was a little bit of a testy one. He tends to have very like black or white, right? It's like a lot of like, that was atrocious or that was great. There's not a lot of like, that was a 3.5 out of 5 type books. Which is why I like Mike a lot. Mike will give a good 3.5 if a book is just a 3.5. Like he just read that new Grady Hendrix book, which is something for wayward girls, and he was like, it was fine. Like it did this good, it did this bad, it was okay. I think we need more book reviewers who are okay with like having that conversation, even that doesn't get like the most clicks.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of try to do that myself, but sometimes it's hard to put in the words like, hey, sometimes a book is just kind of, it's fine,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's just kind of,
Yeah.
But I mean, some books are kind of, I'm currently like kind of reevaluating my ratings, not ratings. Like I want to get to a point where when I give a book a 3, that means it's above average. Because a 3 out of 5 is above average. But in my head right now, if I give a book a 3, it means I don't like it. And I've got to like mentally get
I'd say 3 is like, I thought it was fine. Like, I don't think it was...
Right, like I'm just saying for me right now, like my natural reaction to I gave a book a 3, because in the past it's been more like, okay, a 5 is great. Like a 4.5 is like great, but I didn't like one thing. 4 means it's really good. Like 3.5 is there were some things I hated, and 3 is like bad. Like if I see something under on Goodreads, I immediately in my head I'm like, oh, it must like people must really hate this book. And I'm like, wait, it's like a 3.97, right? Like that should be well above average. And so like I'm trying to get my like feelings in line with my logic on that one, because like realistically, a 3 out of 5 should be an above average book for me. But I tend to give an above average book a 4 right now. So I'm going to get there, But it's weird when you have a channel, because it's like, okay, I just gave Harbinger of Justice a 4 out of 5. I thought that was an above average book. If I give The Black Mantle a 3.5 out of 5 to try to get my rating system back correct, people are just going to see that I gave it less than Harbinger of Justice, even if I like it more. But now, you never like. When do you get to change your rating system? It's like it's tough.
I don't really do rating systems.
Yeah.
Even though I still kind of think in those
ratings.
terms, I don't really.
Yeah, I put ratings on like my Instagram posts and stuff because that like people look at those and they want to be able to see it quickly. So, like I gave that one a 4 out of 5. And so like realistically, if I was to do the ratings like I probably should have been like a 8 out of 5, which is still well above average. But I already feel like that means I didn't like the book, even though I know that's not true.
I do think it was kind of hilarious in the Conan comment section that everyone was just like, dude, mostly agreed. They were just kind of like, dude, like you just were not on it with this book, bro. I thought it was pretty funny. But
comment sections are great. I had someone tell me in the comment section today that he found my channel and he thought it was interesting.
Sorry about that. My internet went again, so I had to put it on my hotspot for a while. So yeah, can you hear me?
That's all right.
Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Sorry, but you can continue what you were saying. You're kind of paused, but I'll be all right.
All right, it's all good. I assume you just edit it and post,
Yeah, I will.
Well, I probably need to get off here in a minute so I can. We got a long day of work tomorrow. But
oh yeah, I was about to finish this off soon, so don't worry. Longest I'll go is about 2 hours. So.
Wait. No, I got you.
Or 2.5, or sometimes 2.5 if it gets really good, but that's very rare. It's rare. A little over.
We got a Super Bowl party tomorrow.
Oh yeah, same here.
We do after church. We do a big Super Bowl party and feed everybody and have games and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a sun up to sundown type day for me tomorrow. Which I mean, Sundays go time. So.
Yeah, that's how it usually is. We are also having a Super Bowl gathering at my house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's always fun.
Yeah, we have about a little under 250 people who come to the church party and stuff, and it'll be good. It'll be a good time. Eat some food. We don't actually watch the Super Bowl at the party. Everybody leaves before then because it'd be kind of hard to curate a Super Bowl watching party at a church and like turn off all the commercials with half naked people on them and stuff. So we just don't even try to do that.
Fair enough.
It'd be too hard. We're like, just go home and watch it yourself. I don't have to turn off the halftime show, because we can't watch that at church. So
yeah, that's fair.
So we just eat, play games, and everybody leaves. But
sounds like a busy day.
Yeah.
I've went to a couple church Super Bowl event categories. Like that's where I actually saw. Not only did I watch that infamous Super Bowl where they should have just gave it to Marshawn Lynch and they would have won that game after that ridiculous catch that guy made. And it's also where I watched 28-3, if you recall, in NFL.
I remember 28-3. I do. Old oh gosh, I'm blanking on old Matt Ryan.
Poor Matt Ryan.
Oh, Matt Ryan. Poor Matt Ryan, dude.
No, I said poor.
I saw Matt Ryan.
I said poor Matt Ryan because that guy.
Poor Matt Ryan.
Yeah, dude paid his dues, man.
I saw him play in college live because he went to Boston College. I saw them play Virginia Tech, if I remember correctly. When my sister was going there, and he beat Tech, so I never really liked Matt Ryan because he had beat Tech while I was there.
Oh. I just know him from his career in the NFL. I didn't know him when he was in. Oh. Oh, jeez. Oh. Okay. Can you hear me?
Are you breaking up again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you back. That's okay.
Nah, it's just. Oh, man, my internet's being weird right now. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes it does this. Gonna go in there and chew my parent. I'm gonna chew my parents out for probably. No, I'm kidding.
Don't do that.
No,
Not at my expense. Don't do it.
No, but yeah, Super Bowl should be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made a joke. Do you remember? I think it was in The Dark Knight Rises when the football stadium gets destroyed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I made a joke that like I need everyone to get evacuated first because we don't want any loss of life. But like the best possible outcome for the Super Bowl for me, with Philly and Kansas City in it, is if that scene is reenacted.
That's my writing alarm.
Let's get everybody out first. But,
Yeah, have Heinz Ward run for that touchdown.
Yeah, it was
blown up.
It was Heinz Ward, dude. It was because I was shot in Pittsburgh.
That's funny. All right. Well, I mean, if the internet frets out isn't a sign, I probably should let you go before too long. But
it's all good. I had a blast, man.
Dustin, thank you, sir, for coming on. I hope to have you on again sometime, and maybe we'll do other things. But
yeah, we need to read something at the same time and then talk about it.
Yes, that would be fun. But
I like that.
Yes, I would like that as well. That would be fun. But if you have any social media that you would like to share, feel free.
Yeah, I Instagram at Preacher Reads, and then YouTube at Preacher Reads. Those are the two places that I am currently posting. I use Instagram mainly for like short form content. I do dabble a decent amount in like graphic design, so I've been trying to kind of flex those muscles a little bit on like short review graphics and update graphics on like as I'm reading series and stuff. And then YouTube is the long form stuff where I just run my mouth about the books I'm reading. So would love to see you guys over there. If you guys haven't checked out the channel, hopefully you like it.
Fair enough. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Aside from the internet messery, I'll probably edit that in Premiere Pro. So
edit it in post, baby.
Yeah, edit it. Exactly. Edit it in post. But anyways, Dustin, for real, I had a really good time.
I did too, man. Thank you for inviting me, Britton.
Until next time.
All right.